and welcome back. In 6A I referred to my Bachmann track testing American locomotive. And that's because I have a small collection of American stock and I wondered to do something different. Let's talk about the USA and N-gauge and what you would do if you were starting out in N-gauge in America, possibly today, or you may have just started out. And one of the first things you're going to have to consider is what coupling you're going to use. Now, in Europe, we've got one coupling basically, and although manufacturers from time to time are trying to get us to change all our stock from the almost 100% common Rapido coupler, we sort of, in Europe, we shy away from that. Well, of course the American market is entirely different, and in fact the Rapido coupler is not a thing of the past, but almost, and you can pick up some very good bargains with Rapido couplers of stock on the American version of the famous auction site. So they don't use Rapido. What do they use? Well, they use a selection of alternatives. The McHenry is one that you'll hear of, but probably the most common one of all is called the Magnimatic coupler, and this is a coupling, and these three wagons here in front of us have got them, that is manufactured by a company called Microtrains, who manufacture an absolutely astounding selection of rolling stock, and here's one of their models with the Magnimatic coupling in it. And if you think you've seen that before, and it bears a remarkable resemblance to the KD coupler, well, it does, because KD was the firm that developed this type of coupling, and it has to be said, it's very good. Of course, it looks a lot more prototypical and it works quite well. Having said that, the usual manufacturers are available in the American market, and here's a few that you'll probably have heard of, or with KD, or with Rapido couplers. Here's Atlas, again very common. One that you may not have heard of, rather upmarket brand for wagons, called Roundhouse. You have down at the cheap end, if you can get hold of them, a company called Lifelike, etc, 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 and we could go on. But so there are different couplings, and you have to decide which ones you're going to use, and you'll eventually buy the wrong ones at some stage. It's going to happen. So when it comes to locomotives, one of the things that you might wish to avail yourself of is something like this. This is an Atlas model, little Bobo, which has got a Rapido on one end and a Magnimatic on the other end, and it's an RS1, which is basically a shunter, and we'll have that working in a few minutes. One of the good things about American stock, particularly when it comes to little wagons like this, is that they're pretty cheap, and it's only really the cost of getting them across the Atlantic that's possibly off-putting. So the exchange rate is a thing to watch, and they generally come with a history, and the company will tell you, if you want to change the couplings, then what other couplings and the what specifications there is. I should mention that one thing that's very common on American models, particularly the early ones with slide doors, is the fact that the doors actually open. So a freight train going along with a hobo sitting in an empty doorway is a great possibility in this. Of course, later and more modern stock freight has what they call the plug doors, but you can get models of short and medium and long wagons with one door, two door, sliding open as you wish, in a whole host of product names. It really is, it's all private owner stuff. So here we have our Atlas RS1 on the main road, ready to go, so let's give it a whirl. Now, a couple of things to note about American diesels, the more modern ones in particular, is that they all have running lights, and the up-to-date ones have running lights that are lit in the direction of travel. Also have other lights, selections of lights, searchlights on the front, ditch lights that they call, never know why they're called ditch lights, etc. And they're a bit smaller than you'd expect as well, because of course this model is 1/160th compared with English Engage 1/148. So they appear to be sometimes a bit smaller than you nearly expect. So here he comes. I haven't mentioned American Steam, which again tends to be, relative to diesels, not as popular as you would expect them to be in the English market, and that's because the market's different. And of course steam went out much earlier in the USA than it did in Europe and the UK. So there's a healthy interest in early diesels, and from particularly an Engage point of view, from the 1970s onwards, these were models that would work a heck of a lot better than the European and English models that were available at the time. The one exception being, of course, the superb Minitrix offerings, all apart from their IVET 260. So there we have a nice train. And a pretty nice bit of shunting there, and we're in a siding where I haven't actually cleaned the track yet, so a little stop is not surprising. Okay, engines are always more popular, so things to look out for. Early Atlas is an early model, E8 or that ilk, one of the 1950s hood diesels. Nice looking model, but underneath there's stud pickups, don't know if you can see that, pickup there and a pickup there that literally runs along the track, and they're at the end of their life now, so if you see them advertised, I personally would shy away. However, the hood diesels are very popular, and if you saw this, which is a lifelike model of a similar diesel, available in the UK and on the auction sites, some new old stock, most of it second hand, pretty cheap. They have Rapido couplings, they weigh an absolute ton, and they perform like a Rolls Royce. Super models, one to watch out for. American market, of course, was the first to introduce the unpainted model. So here we have an American hood diesel, Rapido couplings, made by Lifelike, and you can colour it to whatever railroad you fancy. I might want to end up as LMS, I don't know. And of course they had the B units. The B unit is a diesel in its own right. This one happens to be the B unit from this locomotive, and it's basically the slave unit. This one doesn't have a motor in it. Some are marketed with motors in them. There you have it. Those two together would make up a very nice heavyweight freight unit. So the Americans were really the first to offer that sort of thing, and if you can get them, they can be a lot of fun. Here we have a fairly cheap model that can be picked up, smaller than the big fun ones that I showed you. This is a Bobo. It's called a Sea Liner. Well, equivalent to a Class 40, I suppose. And nice cheap model. Heavy as heck. 1/160th, and very good haulage capacity, very good slow motion. With a light at the front. Reverse, and the light still stays on, so it hasn't got modern electronics inside it, and if you wanted to convert it to DCC you'd probably have to take a chisel to it, but removing a significant amount of metal from the inside would not affect its haulage capacity too much, because they are heavy. So there we go, there's something that can be picked up for a very reasonable amount of money, either from the States or in the UK, in the second-hand market. She's got a Rapido coupling on the rear, she's got a dummy coupling of some description on the front, but quite frankly, who cares? So here we have a slightly more modern Atlas. This is an RS11 model, and if we get it going you'll see the light, hope you'll see the light come on at the front. No light at the back, no light lit at the back. Well, that would be prototypical. If we stop it, reverse direction, light at the back has gone off, and we have not one but three lights at the front. The searchlight plus the numbers. Isn't that nice? So N-gauge, N scale in America is different, and it's basically about collecting what you're interested in, whether it be specific railroads, of which there are many and varied, or even down to types of traffic. So buyer beware. I haven't mentioned passenger stock, of course, and on the second-hand market you might be able to pick up something like that, the long carriages, the American ones. That's an Atlas, but here's one very similar, which I've had for some time, and that is, yes, our old friend Lima. And they weren't bad runners. Nice heavy carriages. Of course, by today's modelling standards they're probably not a bit crude, but there again. Also, a lot of Americans are interested in modelling different types of wagons. Coming back to our old friend Micro Trains here, they do this refrigerated box car, 40-foot box car, with the hatches in the top of it, as you can see, and they are removable, and that's where the ice used to be put in to keep the product clean. Now, they make this box car in any number of different road names, colours and styles, but one thing that's very popular and possibly commands a bit more money with the Americans is they do breweries. And they've got some weird names. Yes, and also, of course, if you're lucky, you can pick up Pepsi Cola or Coca-Cola. So you could have this is a particular favourite of mine, this wagon, Canada Dry, and that was bought online as a batch along with two others. Bear with me, the fun never stops here. So we now have a banana importer, could be part of a seaside port model, or you might want the Crazy Water Company, Crazy Water Crystals. I have no idea. Okay, we featured in the locomotives a couple of Atlas, and we have our old friend, the train set model from Bachmann here. What else are Bachmann up to in the American market? Well, you might come across items that are under the market name of Bachmann Plus, or you might come across the Spectrum range. Now, this is an interesting model. Again, it's a big diesel, huge modern American diesel, and as you can see, it's plain, but it hasn't even been made up, so it leaves you to put the handrails on and the detail and to paint it up to your own specification, and they're available on the American market. So you get again another option if you want to know the difference between Spectrum and Bachmann Plus and all the rest of it. Well, the best thing to do is a little bit of homework and go online. The here's a huge box. That's an F7 with its mate, the B unit. Both of them have got motor in, so you've got two Bobos, both motorised, both really decent models, and both in competition with Kato, which is very large in the American market at the upper end, I must say, both in price and quantity and quality. So things like this tend to be a bit cheaper than you would expect them in the UK. So yes, go online, have a look. The American market is vast, and there are lots of collectors of different things, whether they be railroad operating names or companies or whatever. The whole of the UK will fit into, as you know, one small state in the US, so the American engaged market is vast. Yes, the layouts are different. Yes, you've got decisions to make with couplings, particularly in focus couplings. And when starting out, there are things, there are do's and don'ts and things to look out for. But I hope that's given you a flavour of what's possible with the American market. So there you go. Let me know if you want to see more. I will happily oblige. Bye for now.